ocean looks calm from above, a wide, breathing surface, light moving gently across blue water. But far below that quiet skin, something else begins, something slower, darker. As you drift downward in your mind, the light thins, colors soften, then fade. Sounds become distant, as if the world above is slowly forgetting you. This is where pressure grows heavy, not suddenly, but patiently. Layer after layer. A weight that does not rush. Here, time feels different. Minutes stretch. Movements slow. Nothing hurries, because nothing needs to. In this deep place, life does not live fast. It waits. And some of the creatures waiting here grow far larger than anyone expects. Not fierce, not loud, just immense. A shape drifting past, wider than a room. A body resting on the seafloor, thick and armored, unmoving for hours. A presence that feels ancient, not threatening. When people hear about giant creatures in the deep sea, the mind often jumps to fear, to monsters, to danger. But down here, size is not about terror. It is about endurance. The deep sea is not a battlefield. It is a place of long pauses, long hunger, long silence. Food does not arrive often. There are no green plants growing in the darkness, no steady rhythm of meals. Instead, nourishment drifts down slowly from above. Tiny fragments, soft remnants. A quiet snowfall of life that has already lived once before. And sometimes, very rarely, something larger arrives. A heavy gift from the upper world, enough to last a long, long time. So the creatures here do not rush to eat. They do not burn energy quickly. They grow in a way that matches this patience. Slowly, carefully, cold water surrounds everything. Not biting cold, just steady, near freezing, but never changing. Cold slows the body. It tells the heart to beat gently. It tells cells to work without urgency. In this cold, growing slowly is not a disadvantage. It is a quiet advantage. A body that grows larger can store more energy, more strength for waiting. A larger form can rest longer between meals. It can remain still without loss. It can survive where smaller, faster lives would fade away. Down here, waiting is not boredom. Waiting is survival. Pressure presses in from all sides, not as pain, not as threat, just as presence. For the creatures born here, pressure is normal. It shapes them gently over generations. Their bodies are built for it, strong, dense, stable, and sometimes being larger makes that stability easier to maintain. In the deep sea, there are fewer sudden dangers, fewer chases, fewer surprises. Predators exist, yes, but they are not everywhere. They are patient too, so size becomes a kind of quiet protection. Not armor meant for battle, but presence that says, this is not worth the effort. A large body does not need to run. It does not need to hide quickly. It simply exists calmly in its place. And over long stretches of time, this calm existence shapes evolution itself. The deep sea changes very little. temperature stays nearly the same. The darkness never lifts. The pressure never eases. In such a stable world, life does not need to reinvent itself constantly. It can refine, slowly, patiently. Some creatures here have ancestors that lived millions of years ago. They are not relics, they are continuations. And their size is part of that continuation. Growing large in the deep is not about domination. It is about fitting into a world where speed is wasteful, where urgency costs too much, where survival favors those who can last. So these creatures grow, not quickly, but steadily. Over years, over decades, their lives are not measured in moments, but in long, unbroken stretches of being. As you rest with this thought, imagine the deep again. Dark water, stillness, a giant form drifting slowly, almost gently through the cold. Not hunting, not fleeing, simply existing exactly as the deep allows. There is no rush here, no need to understand everything at once. The ocean will keep its secrets for now, and you can let your thoughts slow, just as life slows down in the depths. In the next part, we will drift a little deeper, not to uncover answers, but to quietly notice how this vast, patient world continues to shape the lives within it. For now, there is nothing you need to do, nowhere you need to go, just rest. As the mind drifts deeper, the surface world feels farther away. Its noise fades, its urgency loosens its grip. Down here, nothing calls for attention, nothing demands a decision. The water grows darker, but not empty. It is filled with quiet movement, slow currents, gentle drifting forms. In this place, being small is not always an advantage. Small bodies lose heat quickly. They burn energy faster. They must eat often or they disappear. The deep does not favor hurry. Imagine living in a world where meals arrive without warning. Days pass, weeks pass, sometimes longer. There is no schedule, no promise, so the body learns a different way. It learns to conserve, to store, to wait without stress. And over time, bodies that can hold more survive more easily. A larger body is not greedy here. It is practical. It can store nourishment quietly deep within. It can rest without wasting strength. It can remain still without fear. Stillness is not weakness in the deep sea. Stillness is wisdom. Cold water surrounds everything, pressing gently against skin and shell. Cold slows the inner rhythms of life. Hearts beat more softly. Cells move with less urgency. In warmer places, growing large demands more fuel, more oxygen, more effort. But in the cold depths, the water itself carries more oxygen. Breathing becomes easier, even for larger forms. Here, size does not suffocate life. It supports it. A large body can be sustained without strain. It can exist calmly, without constantly reaching for more. And so, over long periods of time, size becomes less of a risk and more of a quiet solution. Pressure surrounds everything evenly. There is no direction to escape it. No up, no down, For creatures born here, pressure is not crushing, it is familiar. Their bodies are shaped to match it. Dense, balanced, untroubled. Some scientists believe that larger bodies handle this pressure more gently, not by resisting it, but by distributing it. More volume, less strain in any one place. Nothing here needs to be thin or delicate. Nothing needs to be light. The deep sea does not ask for speed. It asks for endurance. And endurance often comes with weight. In the darkness, vision is precious. Light is rare. Movement is subtle. So eyes, too, sometimes grow larger, not to see beauty, but to catch the faintest trace of motion. A distant glow, a shadow passing slowly through black water. Larger eyes gather more light. Larger bodies support them. But even sight is not rushed. No sudden chase follows. No panic. Everything unfolds at the pace of the deep. Predators exist here, but they are few. They wait longer. They choose carefully. Attacking a large, dense creature is costly. Energy spent must be worth it. Often it is not. So size becomes a quiet shield, not through threat, but through effort required. Why struggle when easier paths exist? In shallow waters, life is crowded, busy, competitive. Everything eats quickly or becomes eaten, but the deep is spacious, vast, almost empty by comparison. There is room to grow without constant challenge, room to exist without being noticed. Over time, this spaciousness changes evolution itself. Life slows down, reproduction slows. Instead of many offspring, there are fewer, but each one carries more strength, more preparation, more time built into its body. This is not impatience. It is trust in stability. The deep sea does not change much. The temperature remains. The darkness remains. The pressure remains. And so life, there does not rush to adapt. It refines what already works. Growing larger becomes part of that refinement. Not all creatures choose it, but for those that do, size becomes a companion through long stretches of quiet. Think of a body resting on the seafloor, unmoving, unbothered. Hours pass. Nothing happens, and nothing needs to. In this world, survival is not loud. It is patient. As you settle into this rhythm, notice how your own thoughts slow. There is no pressure to remember details. No need to follow every idea. Like the deep sea itself, this story does not mind if you drift. We will continue downward, toward a place where time stretches even further, and where life learns to live not by abundance, but by trust in long, quiet waiting. For now, let the darkness feel gentle. Let the stillness feel safe. There is nothing chasing you here. Only the slow, steady rhythm of the deep. As the descent continues, the sense of direction begins to soften. Up and down lose their meaning. Only depth remains. Here, the water is no longer a place you move through. It is something that holds you, supports you. Movement becomes gentle by necessity. Every motion costs energy. Every decision is weighed by the body itself. In the deep sea, nothing moves without reason. Life here has learned a quiet truth. Energy is precious, more precious than speed, more precious than strength. So bodies grow in ways that make sense for a world where effort must be saved. A larger body does not rush. It does not dart or flee. It drifts, rests, waits. Imagine an animal that does not eat every day, not every week, sometimes not even every month. Its body holds memory of the last meal, not in thought, but in stored warmth, stored strength. Fat and tissue become quiet reserves, a way of remembering abundance in a world of scarcity. This is one reason size matters here. Smaller bodies must stay alert. They burn through reserves quickly. They must search often, move often, risk often. But a larger form can afford stillness. It can wait without fear. It can allow the world to come to it. In the deep, patience is not a choice. It is a requirement. And over long stretches of time, those who can wait longer survive longer. Food arrives slowly from above, not as meals, but as traces, tiny particles drifting down through kilometers of water. Soft remnants of life already lived. This gentle fall never stops, but it is never enough. So creatures adapt, not by chasing more, but by needing less. A larger body, moving slowly, uses less energy per moment than a smaller one struggling to stay alive. This seems backwards at first, but the deep sea often reverses expectations. Here, being large does not mean being wasteful. It means being efficient over time. A long life, lived slowly, can stretch one rare meal into months of survival. Time itself feels altered here. Days blur together. Seasons lose meaning. Some creatures grow so slowly that years pass without visible change. Decades shape them quietly. They do not hurry toward adulthood. There is no pressure to arrive. Growing large takes time, and the deep sea has time to give. It has existed in this state for millions of years. Cold, dark, stable. While the surface changes constantly, the deep remains almost the same. This stability allows bodies to grow without fear of sudden disaster. No sudden heat, no sudden light, no sudden storms. In such a world, life invests differently. Instead of producing many offspring quickly, some species produce fewer, but stronger ones. Each new life begins already prepared for waiting, prepared for darkness, prepared for hunger. And as generations pass, those prepared bodies sometimes grow larger than expected. Not because size was the goal, but because size fit the rhythm. Pressure continues to surround everything. Equal, constant. It presses gently but endlessly. Bodies here are not hollow. They are solid, balanced. Water fills spaces where air once might have been. There is no collapse, only adaptation. And in this environment, larger structures can feel more stable, less affected by tiny distortions. Nothing here is fragile by accident. Fragility would not last long. So size becomes part of a design shaped by calm persistence. The deep sea does not reward clever tricks. It rewards consistency. Be steady, be patient, be able to endure long stretches of nothing at all. Even danger behaves differently here. Predators are careful. They cannot afford mistakes. Chasing costs energy. Fighting costs energy. So a large, slow-moving creature often goes unnoticed, not because it is hidden, but because it is not worth the effort. Why attack something that will take too long when something smaller might drift by later? Size becomes a silent agreement, a signal without sound. The deep sea is full of such quiet signals. Nothing is announced. Nothing is displayed. Everything simply exists in balance. As you imagine this world, notice how different it feels from the surface. There is no urgency, no countdown, no rush toward the next moment. The deep does not care about speed. It cares about staying alive through long darkness, staying present through long hunger, staying unchanged while the world above transforms again and again. And in this staying, some creatures become vast, not suddenly, but inevitably. They grow into the time they are given. As your thoughts slow with them, there is no need to follow every detail. Like the deep sea itself, this story allows drifting. If ideas fade, that is fine. If images blur, that is natural. We will gently explore how safety, not fear, shapes life in the depths, and how being large can mean being left alone. For now, let the rhythm remain slow. Let the darkness feel wide and calm. There is nothing here that needs your attention. Only the quiet continuation of life, moving at the pace of the deep. As the depth increases, the feeling of danger does not grow stronger. Instead, it softens. Sharp edges fade. Threat becomes distant. The deep sea is often imagined as hostile, but hostility requires energy. It requires pursuit, confrontation, urgency. Down here, energy is too valuable for that. So life takes a quieter approach. Predators exist, but they are not everywhere. They do not roam endlessly. They wait. Waiting costs less than chasing. And because predators are careful, prey does not need to live in constant fear. This changes everything. In shallow waters, being small is often a shield. Small bodies hide easily. They slip into cracks, vanish into coral, disappear into motion. But the deep sea has few hiding places. No reefs, no forests, just open water and wide plains of sediment. Here, smallness offers little protection. Speed is also costly. A fast escape requires muscles burning fuel quickly. In a world where food is uncertain, this is a dangerous strategy. So the deep chooses another path. Instead of hiding or fleeing, some creatures grow into a size that discourages attention altogether. A predator must decide whether an attack is worth it. Will the effort return enough energy to survive? Often, the answer is no. A large, dense body takes time to subdue. Time costs energy. Risk costs survival. So predators pass by, not out of fear, but out of calculation. This is how size becomes safety. Not dramatic, not violent, just practical. A body that is too large, to be convenient is often a body left alone. And being left alone is valuable in the deep. Some creatures develop thick outer coverings. Others grow heavier, more solid forms. Some extend long limbs, not to strike, but to sense space around them. These are not weapons. They are signals. Signals that say, this will take effort. In the deep sea, effort is avoided whenever possible. This creates an environment where large bodies are tolerated, even respected in a quiet way. No challenge, no contest, just coexistence. Safety also comes from scarcity. There simply are not enough predators to threaten everything. The deep sea is vast beyond imagination. Creatures are spread far apart. Encounters are rare, and rarity reduces pressure. In such a world, there is less need to stay small, quick, and hidden. There is room to grow. Over generations, this absence of constant threat allows bodies to change slowly, without the pressure to remain agile or compact. Size is free to increase, not explosively, not suddenly, but quietly, as an answer to a question the environment keeps asking. How long can you last? And the answer, again and again, is that larger bodies often last longer. Longevity follows size in the deep. Not always, but often. A slow metabolism supports a long life. A long life reduces the need for frequent reproduction. This changes the rhythm of existence itself. Instead of rushing to create many offspring, some deep-sea creatures invest deeply in a few. Each new life is given more time, more energy, more chance to survive. This is not abundance. It is trust. Trust that the environment will remain stable. Trust that patience will be rewarded. And the deep sea has earned that trust. It has remained cold and dark for millions of years, where the surface world changes with seasons, storms, and cycles. The deep remains nearly the same. This stability allows evolution to slow down. Changes are small, gradual, and over long periods, small changes accumulate, sometimes into size. Some deep-sea creatures resemble their ancestors from ages long past. They are not outdated. They are perfectly suited to a world that has not demanded urgency. Their bodies reflect time itself, time enough to grow large, time enough to wait. In such a place, being ancient is not a disadvantage. It is a qualification. When humans encounter these creatures, the reaction is often surprise. How can something so large live here? But the better question might be, how could it not? The deep sea offers what large bodies need: cold, oxygen-rich water, few disturbances, few predators, and above all, time. Time stretches gently here. There is no rush to change, and so bodies expand into that time, filling it slowly, patiently. Imagine a giant form resting on the ocean floor. It does not think of itself as large. It simply exists in the shape that works. Its heart beats slowly. Its movements are minimal. Days pass without action. Weeks pass without need. And nothing is wrong. This is not survival through struggle. It is survival through alignment. The deep sea does not reward ambition. It rewards balance. Those who take only what they need, who move only when necessary, who grow only as much as time allows. As you rest with this idea, notice how calm it feels. There is no competition here, no urgency to become something else, only a quiet permission to be exactly as you are. We will drift further into the deep, where darkness becomes complete and where size takes on another meaning, not just as safety, but as presence in a world without light. For now, allow your thoughts to slow again. Let the rhythm soften. Nothing here needs to be solved. Nothing needs to be remembered. Like the deep sea itself, this story continues patiently. Whether you are awake or gently drifting toward sleep, the darkness deepens until it feels complete. Not empty, not frightening, just complete. In this place, light no longer arrives from above. There are no shadows, no outlines. Everything exists without being seen, and yet life continues calmly. Without light, the meaning of size changes again. On the surface, size is often something to display, to show, to compare. But here, size is not seen, it is felt. Through pressure in the water, through subtle shifts in movement, through the quiet displacement of space. A large body moves differently, not faster, not slower, more deliberately. When something large drifts through the deep, the water responds. Currents bend slightly, particles change direction. These are not signals meant to impress. They are simply consequences of presence. In total darkness, presence matters more than appearance. A larger body carries momentum gently. It does not need constant motion to remain stable. It can float, rest, hover, supported by the density of the water itself. This reduces effort, and effort is always conserved here. Smaller forms must adjust constantly, tiny movements, frequent corrections, but a larger form settles into the water. It finds balance more easily, and balance in the deep is a kind of comfort. The deep sea is quiet, but not silent. There are faint sounds, low vibrations, distant movements carried through water rather than air. Larger bodies are better at sensing these changes. They feel disturbances sooner. They notice shifts before they arrive. This awareness does not lead to panic. It leads to stillness. When something is sensed, the body does not react quickly. It simply pauses. Often, that is enough. In a world where encounters are rare, anticipation replaces reaction, and size supports anticipation. A larger nervous system can process slowly, carefully, without urgency. Nothing demands an immediate answer. The deep sea teaches restraint, and larger bodies embody it. They do not startle easily. They do not waste motion. They wait until movement is necessary. There is also warmth, or rather, the careful holding of it. In near freezing water, losing heat too quickly can be costly. Larger bodies retain warmth more efficiently, not by producing more, but by letting less escape. This gentle retention supports steady internal rhythms. Hearts beat evenly. processes continue without interruption. Nothing spikes, nothing crashes. Consistency becomes the foundation of life, and consistency favors size. A body that can maintain itself without constant correction is a body that lasts. The deep sea is full of long lives, not dramatic lives, quiet ones, lives measured not by events, but by continuity. And over such long spans, growth continues almost unnoticed, year by year, layer by layer, until one day, the body is simply larger than expected. This growth is not planned. It is not aimed toward an end. It happens because nothing stops it. There is no sudden need to shrink, no pressure to become smaller or faster. The environment remains forgiving as long as energy is respected, so bodies expand into the space they are given. In the deep, space is abundant. Vast plains stretch for thousands of kilometers. Open water extends endlessly in all directions. There is no crowding, no constant contact, and where there is space, there is room for size. Large forms do not compete constantly. They rarely meet others of similar scale. Encounters are brief, unremarkable, and then the water closes again, leaving each body alone with itself. This solitude also shapes behavior. Without frequent interaction, there is little need for display. No bright colors, no elaborate signals. Everything unnecessary fades away over time. What remains is function. Calm function. Size, when it remains because it serves that function. In the deep sea, nothing exists just to be impressive. If something is large, it is because being large helps it endure, helps it wait, helps it persist through long periods of stillness. This endurance creates a different relationship with time. Time is not something to fill. It is something to move through gently. Moments are not counted. They are allowed to pass. Some deep-sea creatures may live for decades, others for centuries. Their bodies reflect this slow unfolding. Growth is spread across years so evenly that it never feels urgent. And because growth is slow, it is rarely costly. The body adjusts gradually, always staying within its limits. This slow expansion creates stability. Bones, shells, tissues adapt alongside size. Nothing is rushed. Nothing is strained. Everything grows together. In such a system, there is no reason to stop growing early. As long as energy remains balanced, as long as waiting remains possible, size can continue to increase. For humans, this feels unfamiliar. We associate size with dominance, with effort, with power used quickly. But the deep sea shows another version. Here, size is quiet, unassertive. It does not push against the world. It settles into it. A large body, drifting through darkness, is not announcing itself. It is simply occupying the shape that fits its environment best. As you imagine this, there is no need to picture details clearly. Blurry shapes are enough. Soft impressions. The deep does not demand clarity. Let your thoughts move the same way. Slow, unforced. If an image fades, allow it to fade. If an idea drifts away, let it go without following. This world does not require attention. It continues whether observed or not. Size here is not a statement. It is a consequence of patience, a result of staying long enough for growth to happen naturally. And in this patient world, nothing feels out of place. Not the darkness, not the stillness, not the giants moving quietly through it. Everything belongs exactly as it is. Below the last traces of surface influence, the water feels heavier in a different way. Not oppressive, not threatening, just settled. Here, the deep sea has fully claimed its rhythm. Nothing from above interrupts it. No storms, no seasons, only a steady, unchanging presence. In such a place, bodies do not need to prepare for sudden change. They prepare instead for continuity. Continuity shapes form. It smooths sharp edges. It favors balance over reaction. And over long periods of time, it allows bodies to become larger without penalty. One of the quiet forces shaping life here is oxygen, not in dramatic bursts, but as a constant, dissolved support within the cold water. Cold water holds oxygen gently, making it available even at depth. For larger bodies, this matters. Every cell needs oxygen to continue its slow work. And here, that need is met without urgency. In warmer seas, growing large can become difficult. Demand rises faster than supply. But in the deep, the balance remains steady. A larger body can breathe without strain. Processes continue calmly. Nothing feels starved. This quiet abundance does not lead to excess. It leads to restraint. Life takes only what it needs, and no more. And because needs are met steadily, bodies can afford to grow patiently. The deep sea rarely rewards extremes. Neither speed nor aggression lasts long here. What lasts is moderation, moderate movement, moderate growth, moderate use of energy. Size, when it appears, is an extension of that moderation. A larger form moves less often, consumes less frequently, disturbs the environment less. It blends into the deep not by hiding, but by matching its pace. There is also memory in these bodies, not memory of events, but memory of conditions. Generations pass in near identical surroundings. Cold, dark, still. Bodies inherit shapes that already work. There is little pressure to reinvent. So growth builds upon itself slowly, refining what is already stable. This is why some deep-sea forms feel ancient. They carry time in their proportions, not stretched thin by urgency, but expanded gently by patience. The deep sea floor lies far below, covered in fine sediment. Soft particles settle endlessly, layer upon layer, year after year. Life here learns from that settling. Nothing lands suddenly. Nothing piles up quickly. Everything accumulates. Bodies follow the same rule. Growth is layered, incremental. Each small increase supported by the environment before the next begins. Because of this, large size rarely becomes a burden. Muscles strengthen slowly. Structures thicken gradually. Internal internal systems adapt alongside form. There is no rush ahead of support. This creates resilience. A body grown over decades is not fragile. It has been tested by time itself. Every year that passes confirms that the shape still works. In the deep, silence is constant. Sound travels, but meaning does not travel quickly. Encounters are brief and rare. This isolation changes behavior. Without frequent contact, there is no need to compete constantly. Large bodies do not clash often. They pass one another quietly. If they meet at all, this lack of competition removes another limit on size. In crowded environments, being too large invites conflict. Here, space dissolves conflict before it begins. The ocean absorbs distance effortlessly, and in that distance, size loses its risk. What remains is simple existence. A large form resting in darkness is not challenged, not questioned. It simply continues. Energy conservation remains the guiding principle. Every movement is optional. Every action is considered by the body before it happens. This does not require thought. It is instinct shaped by generations of stillness. Large bodies make fewer adjustments. They remain stable once settled. Stability itself saves energy. In this way, size becomes self-reinforcing. The larger the body, the fewer corrections needed. The fewer corrections, the less energy spent. And the less energy spent, the easier it becomes to remain large. Nothing here spirals out of balance. Everything supports itself quietly. There is no hurry to finish growing. Growth continues as long as conditions allow. If food arrives, it is stored. If time passes, the body adjusts. There is no finish line, no ideal size to reach, only a range that continues to work. Humans often think in limits. Maximum, minimum. The deep sea thinks in tolerance. As long as the body remains efficient, it remains acceptable. So size drifts upward gently, like sediment settling on the ocean floor. This drifting growth feels natural here. It does not attract attention. It does not announce itself. It simply becomes part of the background of existence. Imagine drifting alongside such a form. There is no interaction, no reaction, just shared stillness. The water moves slowly around both of you. Particles float past. Nothing needs to happen. This shared stillness is the deep sea's true language, and large bodies speak it fluently. They do not interrupt the rhythm. They match it. This matching is what allows them to remain year after year, decade after decade. As this rhythm settles into your thoughts, there is no need to keep track of ideas. Let them pass as the water does, slowly, without direction. The deep does not require focus. It allows drifting. Size here is not an achievement. It is not a goal. It is simply what happens when life is given enough time, enough stability, and enough quiet to grow without resistance. And in this quiet, nothing feels out of place. Everything moves exactly as slowly as it needs to. The deep sea does not measure distance the way the surface does. Here, separation is felt more than seen. Between one living form and another, there may be vast stretches of empty water. This distance changes how life relates to itself. There is little interaction, little interruption. Most of existence here happens alone. And in that solitude, bodies adapt to rely on themselves completely. A larger body supports this independence. It carries reserves within it. It does not depend on frequent encounters. It does not search often. It does not signal often. It waits. Waiting in the deep sea is not passive. It is active restraint. Muscles remain relaxed but ready. Systems stay balanced. Nothing is wasted. Large bodies excel at this balance. They settle into the water column or onto the seafloor and remain there, supported by the density around them. The water does much of the work. Buoyancy becomes a quiet partner. In the deep, many bodies are nearly weightless. They do not fight gravity the way surface creatures do. A large form can hover effortlessly, requiring only minimal adjustment. This reduces strain, reduces energy use, and again, size becomes compatible with survival. Movement, when it happens, is smooth, not abrupt, not sharp. Large bodies do not twitch, they shift. The water flows around them gently, absorbing motion rather than resisting it. This smoothness has another effect. It reduces detection. In the deep, sensing movement is more important than seeing it. Tiny vibrations travel far. Fast movement creates noise. Sudden motion stands out, but slow, steady movement blends in. Large bodies that move slowly create fewer sharp disturbances than smaller bodies darting quickly. So size, paired with patience, can actually make a creature less noticeable. This quiet presence supports safety once more. Predators sense less urgency, less invitation. Nothing triggers pursuit. Everything remains calm. Over long periods, this calm becomes normal. Bodies grow accustomed to stillness. Systems are tuned to stability rather than reaction. This tuning favors growth that does not disrupt balance. The deep sea also lacks clear boundaries. There are no walls, no edges. Space extends outward endlessly. Without boundaries, there is less need to fit into tight limits. Bodies are free to occupy larger volumes without conflict. There is no competition for space. This freedom quietly encourages expansion. In crowded environments, growing too large creates friction. Here, friction is rare. The water absorbs presence. Distance absorbs conflict, and so size remains tolerated. Over time, what is tolerated becomes normal. Normal becomes inherited. Bodies pass on proportions that have proven safe, stable, and efficient. And those proportions sometimes include size beyond expectation. Another quiet influence is darkness itself. Without light, visual signals lose importance. Bright colors, patterns, displays, all become unnecessary. Without display, there is little reason to remain compact or agile for signaling. What matters instead is internal efficiency. Larger bodies support larger internal systems, more storage, more buffering against change. This buffering smooths life's fluctuations. When something unexpected happens, a larger body absorbs the change more gently. Temperature shifts are small but noticeable. Chemical changes drift through slowly. A large body responds gradually, without stress. Smaller bodies must react quickly or suffer. Again, size favors patience. Darkness also reduces urgency. Without cycles of light and dark, there is no daily rhythm demanding action. There is no morning, no night, only continuity. In this continuity, growth does not need to pause. Some deep-sea lives unfold so slowly that growth continues long after reproduction begins. There is no clear division between stages. Juvenile and adult blur together. Life does not rush toward milestones. It simply continues, adding mass gradually as conditions allow. This gradual addition rarely becomes excessive. The environment provides feedback gently. If growth costs too much, it slows. If growth remains affordable, it continues. This feedback loop is subtle. There are no sudden failures, no dramatic collapses. Everything adjusts quietly. Large bodies that exist today are the result of countless small confirmations that their size still works. Each day that passes without strain reinforces the body's form. Over years, this reinforcement becomes permanence. In the deep, nothing seeks to impress. There is no audience, no competition for attention, so bodies become what they need to be, not what they appear to be. Size, then, is honest here. It reflects function, not ambition. A large form exists because it fits, not because it dominates. This honesty gives the deep sea its calm. Nothing is exaggerated. Nothing is rushed. Everything is proportional to the time it inhabits. And time here is generous. Millions of years pass with only minor shifts. In that span, growth can explore possibilities without fear of sudden reversal. This is why deep-sea giants often feel timeless. They do not belong to a moment. They belong to an era that stretches so long, it feels almost permanent. Their size is part of that permanence, a quiet statement that says, "This has worked for a very long time." As you rest with this idea, there is no need to picture specific creatures, only a sense of scale, of spaciousness, of bodies moving slowly through darkness. Without concern, your thoughts may slow in response. That is natural. The deep does not encourage sharp focus. It invites easing. There is no destination here, no conclusion waiting ahead, only continued drifting through ideas as wide and unbounded as the ocean itself. Size, patience, and time remain intertwined, and together they shape life in a way that feels calm, inevitable, and quietly enduring. The idea of scale becomes softer. Numbers lose meaning. Distance is felt as openness rather than measurement. The deep sea does not ask how big something is. It asks how well something lasts. Lasting is the true measure here, and lasting depends on balance. Balance between movement and rest, between taking and storing, between growth and restraint. Large bodies, shaped slowly, often find this balance naturally. They do not need to adjust often. They remain steady once settled into their rhythm. One quiet influence on size is how rarely change arrives. On the surface, environments shift constantly. Temperatures rise and fall. Food appears and disappears quickly. Bodies must respond fast or fall behind. But the deep sea changes so slowly that urgency never develops. There is time to respond gently. When conditions shift here, they do so over long spans. Generations may pass before a difference is noticeable. This gives bodies time to adjust gradually. Growth does not need to stop suddenly. It can slow, pause, or continue as needed. Nothing forces an abrupt decision. This gradual adjustment supports larger forms. A large body does not handle sudden change well, but it handles slow change very well. And slow change is all the deep offers. Another quiet factor is how energy moves through the body. In large forms, energy spreads out. It is not concentrated in frantic bursts. Processes happen in parallel, not competition. Digestion, movement, repair, all proceed calmly. This smooth flow prevents stress. Stress is costly. It accelerates processes. It demands more resources. In the deep, stress is avoided whenever possible. Large bodies, with their distributed systems, experience fewer extremes. Nothing spikes sharply. Nothing drains suddenly. This evenness allows size to remain sustainable. The deep sea favors systems that stay within limits. Large does not mean excessive here. It means measured across time. There is also the matter of encounter frequency. Large animals on land meet others often. They compete for space, food, and territory. In the deep sea, encounters are rare. Two large forms may pass years without crossing paths. Without frequent encounters, there is little pressure to establish dominance or boundaries. No need to defend space. This absence of conflict removes another constraint on size. A body does not need to stay small to avoid confrontation. Confrontation rarely happens at all. The water absorbs distance, and distance absorbs tension. In such a setting, size becomes neutral. It neither provokes nor attracts attention. It simply exists. The deep sea also lacks a clear sense of direction. Without light, there is no horizon. Without landmarks, there is no fixed reference. Bodies move relative to water, not to place. Large bodies benefit from this. They do not rely on precise navigation. They drift within ranges rather than paths. This drifting suits larger mass. Small bodies must constantly correct position. Large bodies are carried more easily. The water does more work for them. This cooperation between body and environment reduces effort further. And reduced effort always favors size. Nothing in the deep fights the water. Everything yields slightly. Large forms yield more slowly, which keeps movement gentle. Even feeding follows this pattern. Rather than active pursuit, many deep-sea lives depend on opportunity, waiting for something to arrive, waiting for traces to drift near. Large bodies can afford this waiting. They do not need to chase. Chasing creates imbalance. Stillness preserves it. When food does arrive, a large body can process it slowly. There is no rush to convert it immediately. Storage spreads the benefit over time. This stretching of a single event across weeks or months makes size practical. The deep sea rewards those who can make one moment last. Size helps with that. There is no pressure to optimize for speed. Speed is rarely useful here. What matters is continuity. Large bodies maintain continuity well. They change slowly, heal slowly, age slowly, but they also fail slowly, giving time to adjust. This gradualness supports survival. In such an environment, life does not rush to extremes. It settles into forms that can be sustained indefinitely. Sometimes those forms are large, not because larger is better, but because larger still works. The deep sea does not impose a strict limit on size. It imposes limits on energy use, on disturbance, on imbalance. As long as those limits are respected, size remains flexible. So bodies expand gently until expansion begins to cost more than it gives. At that point, growth slows naturally. No force is needed. This natural breaking keeps size aligned with environment. Nothing overshoots dramatically. Everything remains within a comfortable range. Large, but not strained. This comfort is important. Life in the deep rarely feels pressured. Pressure exists physically, but not psychologically. There is no urgency, no sense of being late, only ongoing presence. As you rest with this idea, notice how the deep sea feels less mysterious and more consistent. Its giants are not exceptions. They are expressions of patience, forms shaped by long spans of calm repetition. Their size tells a story, not of struggle, but of compatibility. Compatibility with cold, with darkness, with distance, compatibility with time itself. You do not need to follow each idea closely. Let them pass like slow currents. Some may stay, some may drift away. Both are fine. The deep allows space for that. Large bodies moving quietly through endless water do not ask to be understood. They simply continue, and in that continuation, there is a gentle reassurance that life can grow slowly, without noise, without urgency, and still belong perfectly to its depths. The sense of time stretches even further. Not forward, not backward, outward. Moments do not stack here. They spread. A single hour feels wide enough to rest inside. A single day feels like a gentle surface, smooth and unbroken. Nothing presses from behind. Nothing pulls from ahead. Time becomes a place rather than a measure. In this place, bodies are not shaped by urgency. They are shaped by duration. What matters is not how quickly something can happen, but how long it can continue happening without cost. Large bodies fit this logic quietly. They are built for continuation. Consider how the deep sea receives energy. It does not surge. It does not overflow. Energy arrives slowly, fragment by fragment, particle by particle. This slow arrival teaches patience at every level of life. Cells learn to wait. Systems learn to stretch, and bodies learn to grow only as fast as supply allows. Growth here is never reckless. A body does not grow ahead of its support. It listens constantly to what the environment provides. If energy arrives steadily, growth continues. If energy thins, growth pauses without distress. There is no panic in stopping. This responsiveness makes large size possible. Growth is not a gamble. It is a conversation with the environment, held quietly over long spans of time. Another aspect of size reveals itself in how deep-sea bodies experience damage. In shallow environments, injury can be sudden and frequent. Predators bite, currents push, surfaces scrape, but in the deep, encounters are rare and gentle. When damage happens, it often happens slowly. Large bodies can absorb minor damage without collapse. Their systems are distributed, redundant. One small failure does not threaten the whole. This resilience supports longevity. A body that survives small losses can continue growing without fear. Nothing needs to be perfect. Perfection is not required in the deep. Stability is. Even movement through the deep feels forgiving. Water here is dense and steady. It cushions motion. Large bodies move with the water rather than against it. There is no sudden resistance, no sharp impact. This softness allows mass to exist without strain. The environment carries weight kindly. Because of this, being large does not feel heavy. It feels supported. Large bodies do not fight gravity alone. They share the burden with the water around them. This partnership reduces cost, and reduced cost always favors size. In a way, the deep sea teaches cooperation without intention. Not cooperation between creatures, but cooperation between body and environment. Bodies grow into forms that the environment already knows how to hold. There is also a quiet relationship between size and awareness. Large bodies often experience the world more slowly. Signals travel longer distances within them. Responses unfold gently. This slowness reduces overreaction. Nothing happens fast enough to demand sudden action. This calm awareness prevents waste. Energy is used only when truly necessary. In such a system, there is little penalty for being large. Awareness does not become overwhelming. It becomes spacious. Thought, if it could be named that, would feel broad rather than sharp. The deep sea rewards this broad awareness. It allows a body to exist without constant adjustment, and without constant adjustment, growth can continue safely. Over many generations, these subtle advantages accumulate. Each generation inherits a body slightly better suited to waiting, slightly better at storing, slightly more tolerant of stillness, Size increases gradually, almost invisibly. There is no moment where gigantism begins. There is only continuation. What humans label as huge is simply the result of long consistency. No dramatic turning point, no sudden leap, just bodies following the same rules for a very long time. The deep sea rarely creates extremes quickly. It prefers slow convergence toward what works best. And what works best here often includes size. This convergence is gentle. If size begins to cost more than it gives, growth slows. If size continues to serve efficiency, growth continues. There is no conflict in this adjustment. It happens quietly, without signaling, without drama. Bodies remain flexible within limits. This flexibility is important. It prevents runaway growth. Deep-sea giants are not limitless. They are simply optimized for a very specific rhythm of existence. That rhythm includes long rest, long fasting, long stillness. Large bodies handle all three gracefully. There's also something comforting about how little is required of these lives. They do not need to perform. They do not need to succeed visibly. They only need to remain balanced. In a world that rarely changes, balance is enough, and size supports balance by smoothing fluctuations. A larger system changes more slowly. Sudden shifts are dampened. This buffering protects life from instability. Even emotional interpretations fall away here. There is no fear in the darkness, no tension in the waiting. The deep sea does not create anxiety. It dissolves it, and bodies that grow within it reflect that dissolution. Their size feels calm, not threatening. Imagine drifting beside such a body for a long time. There is no interaction, no acknowledgement, just shared presence. The water remains steady, particles drift. Nothing interrupts the moment. This shared stillness could last hours, days, and still nothing would be wrong. This is the environment in which large bodies make sense, not because they dominate, but because they fit so completely that nothing needs to change around them. The deep sea does not push against them, it accepts them, and acceptance allows growth to settle into its natural limits. Human stories often frame size as excess, but in the deep, size is moderation expressed over time. It is the outcome of not rushing, of not reacting unnecessarily, of staying aligned with a slow, steady world. This alignment is rare on the surface. Change comes too fast. Competition is constant. But here, alignment can last for millions of years. Bodies grow into that alignment until they feel complete. Completion here does not mean finished. It means stable, able to continue without strain. As this thought settles, there is no need to hold on to it. Like everything in the deep, it can drift away gently. Your mind does not need to work. It can rest in the same way these bodies rest. Supported, unhurried. There is no next step to anticipate, only continuation. Large forms continue drifting in darkness. The water continues holding them, and time continues expanding softly around everything. Nothing here asks for attention. Everything simply remains. Even the idea of depth itself begins to fade. There is no clear sense of how far down you are, only the feeling of being held by something vast and steady. The deep sea does not remind you where you came from. It does not point upward. It does not suggest return. It simply continues, layer after layer, quiet and unbroken. Life here is shaped by that continuity. When nothing changes quickly, the body learns to relax into its surroundings. Tension has no purpose here. Alertness softens, reactions slow. This softness does not mean weakness. It means efficiency without strain. Large bodies reflect this efficiency clearly. A large form in the deep does not constantly adjust itself. It finds a stable state and remains there. Internal systems settle into rhythms that repeat gently without interruption. Breathing slows. Circulation becomes even. Energy use smooths out over long periods. This smoothness allows the body to maintain itself with very little effort, and effort, once reduced, rarely needs to increase again. In this way, size becomes self-maintaining. A large body that is already balanced does not demand extra resources simply to exist. It costs less, proportionally, to stay large than one might expect. The deep sea quietly supports this balance. Cold water continues to play its steady role. It keeps reactions slow. It prevents excess. Nothing overheats. Nothing accelerates uncontrollably. Cold becomes a gentle regulator. In warmer places, growth can become unstable. Energy burns quickly. Systems race to keep up. But here, the cold smooths everything out. Large bodies benefit from this smoothing. Their size spreads internal activity across more space. No single part works too hard. Everything shares the load. This shared load creates resilience. If one process slows slightly, others compensate gently. There is no cascade of failure, no sudden collapse. Large bodies absorb imbalance quietly and return to steady states on their own. This ability to absorb change is one of the deep sea's most valuable gifts. It allows life to continue without constant vigilance, and it allows growth to remain safe over long spans of time. The deep sea also has a different relationship with boundaries. On land, boundaries are sharp. Edges define space. Limits are enforced physically. In the ocean, and especially in the deep, boundaries dissolve. Water does not push back sharply. It yields. Large bodies exist within this yielding environment without friction. There is no hard limit pressing inward. This absence of rigid boundaries makes large size more comfortable. A body can expand into water without encountering resistance. Movement remains smooth. Rest remains supported. The environment adapts around the body, not the other way around. This adaptability encourages calm growth. Where there is no resistance, there is no urgency to remain compact. Size becomes flexible rather than constrained. Another quiet influence comes from how rarely deep-sea life is disturbed. Fishing nets do not reach these depths easily. Waves do not penetrate here. Storms never arrive. Life continues without interruption, without frequent disturbance. There is no pressure to recover quickly. Healing can be slow. Growth can be slow. Everything can take the time it needs. Large bodies, which recover slowly, are not penalized here. They are supported. This support changes what survival looks like. Survival does not mean escaping danger repeatedly. It means avoiding danger almost entirely. Large size contributes to this avoidance. It reduces the number of interactions. It lowers the likelihood of conflict. And fewer conflicts mean fewer injuries. Over time, this safety compounds. A body that avoids damage can invest more energy into maintenance and growth. Nothing needs to be repaired urgently. The body remains whole. The deep sea is also quiet in another way. Chemical changes happen slowly. Nutrient flows drift gently. There are no sudden blooms, no rapid collapses. This chemical stability supports large systems. Large bodies rely on steady internal chemistry. When the environment mirrors that steadiness, size becomes sustainable. There are no shocks to disrupt balance. In such a setting, life can afford to be complex internally without becoming fragile. Complexity spreads across size. Redundancy develops naturally. If one pathway slows, another continues. Large bodies become networks rather than single points. Networks are resilient. They do not fail all at once. This resilience makes size safe over long periods of time. The deep sea also teaches patience in reproduction. There is no advantage to producing many offspring quickly. Resources are too limited. Encounters are too rare. Instead, reproduction becomes an extension of longevity. Large bodies often reproduce slowly. They invest deeply rather than widely. Each offspring carries a greater chance of survival because it begins life already adapted to patience. This reproductive strategy supports size indirectly. Long-lived bodies that reproduce slowly do not need to divide their energy often. They can continue growing even after reproduction begins. Growth and reproduction overlap gently rather than competing. Nothing demands an abrupt shift from one stage to another. Life stages blend together. This blending allows size to increase without disrupting function. In the deep, age does not weaken life quickly. There is no rush toward decline. Bodies age slowly. Wear accumulates gently, often balanced by equally gentle repair. Large bodies, with more tissue and redundancy, tolerate aging well. No single failure ends the whole. This tolerance encourages longevity. And longevity, once again, supports gradual growth. Growth does not stop because youth ends. It slows, perhaps, but it does not abruptly cease. As long as balance remains, size can remain or increase slightly. This gradual continuation is one reason deep-sea giants feel timeless. They are not defined by age. They are defined by persistence. Human imagination often struggles with this pace. We expect growth to be fast or purposeful, but the deep sea shows another model. Growth without urgency, without intention. Growth as a side effect of stability. Large bodies do not seek to become large. They simply remain long enough for growth to happen naturally. This naturalness removes drama from size. There is no spectacle, no moment of transformation, just quiet continuation. A body exists. Time passes. The body still exists. And slowly, it occupies more space. This occupation does not disturb the environment. The environment accepts it because it has accepted similar forms before. Over millions of years, the deep has learned what it can hold, and it holds large bodies easily. As you sit with this idea, there is no need to hold onto details. Let the sense of steadiness remain instead. A feeling of being supported, of not needing to hurry. The deep sea does not rush its creations. It allows them to unfold at exactly the pace they require. Large size is simply one outcome of that permission. Your thoughts can follow the same rule. There is no need to reach a conclusion, no need to gather everything together. Ideas can drift apart and still belong. The deep continues quietly, layer by layer, unchanged by observation. Large forms remain within it, not as anomalies, but as natural expressions of time, space, and patience moving together. Everything after so much stillness, there is a gentle sense of settling, not an ending, just a soft gathering of what has already been there all along. The deep sea does not conclude things sharply. It does not draw lines. It allows understanding to form slowly, the way sediment settles on the ocean floor, grain by grain. What becomes clear, without needing to be stated, is that size in the deep is not an accident. It is not excess. It is not mystery layered on mystery. It is a quiet agreement between life and environment. The deep offers cold, darkness, distance, and time. Life responds with patience, restraint, and endurance. From this exchange, large bodies sometimes emerge. Not suddenly, not dramatically, but inevitably. In a world where food arrives rarely, bodies learn to stretch moments into months. In a world where movement costs energy, bodies learn to rest without fear. In a world where danger is sparse, bodies learn that being noticeable is not the same as being vulnerable. Size fits all of this. It allows storage without greed, presence without conflict, stability without effort. The deep sea does not reward cleverness in the way humans define it. It rewards harmony. Bodies that harmonize with cold grow calm. Bodies that harmonize with scarcity grow efficient. Bodies that harmonize with time grow patient. And sometimes, patience has a large shape. What feels terrifyingly huge from the surface feels completely ordinary in the depths. There is no shock here, no sense of imbalance. A large form drifting through darkness does not feel out of place. It feels expected. The deep sea does not rush to explain itself. It does not need to justify its designs. It simply continues doing what it has always done, allowing life to adapt slowly, quietly, without interruption. Over millions of years, small advantages accumulate: slower metabolism, better energy storage, reduced predation, greater tolerance for stillness. None of these demand size on their own, but together, over time, they make size possible. Not every creature becomes large. The deep allows many strategies. Some remain small and translucent. Some remain delicate and fleeting. But for those that grow, there is no penalty, only confirmation. Each year that passes without strain confirms that the body still fits its world. And fitting, here, matters more than thriving loudly. The deep sea teaches a lesson without instruction. That life does not always optimize for speed. That survival does not always favor urgency. That growth does not need ambition. Sometimes, growth is simply what happens when nothing forces it to stop. Large bodies are not driven by desire. They are shaped by allowance. Allowance of time. Allowance of space. Allowance of stillness. This is why the giants of the deep feel calm rather than aggressive. Why they seem ancient rather than monstrous. They are not symbols of excess. They are symbols of restraint held over long spans. From the surface, it is easy to misunderstand them, to project fear, to imagine danger. But fear belongs to fast worlds. The deep moves too slowly for fear to last. Everything settles before fear can take hold. In this settling, even questions soften. Why are they so large? Why did they grow this way? The answers do not arrive as statements. They arrive as a feeling, a sense that in a place where nothing rushes, life does not rush either. And when life does not rush, it sometimes grows into forms that feel impossible elsewhere. The deep sea is not trying to impress. It is not hiding secrets out of malice. It simply exists at a pace that makes its creations feel unfamiliar to faster minds. Large bodies are one expression of that pace. They are what patience looks like when given enough time to become visible. As this understanding settles, there is no need to hold on to it tightly. Like everything in the deep, it can remain in the background, a quiet awareness rather than a conclusion. Imagine the deep once more: dark water, steady pressure, soft movement. A large form drifts past, unconcerned, unaware of observation. It does not represent mystery. It represents compatibility. A body shaped so carefully by its world that nothing about it needs to change. This is where the sense of winding down naturally begins. Not by stopping, but by resting within what already is. There is nothing more the deep needs to explain. It has shown enough through patience alone. You do not need to remember every idea. You do not need to follow every thread. Like the deep sea itself, this story does not demand attention. It allows drifting. Large creatures continue moving quietly below. The water continues holding them. Time continues stretching gently around everything. Nothing reaches an endpoint. everything simply settles into place. And in that settling, there is calm. The deep no longer feels distant now. It feels familiar, like a place that has always existed quietly in the background. There is nothing left to uncover, nothing hidden behind another layer, only a sense of understanding that does not need words. The deep sea does not explain itself. It simply allows life to settle into shapes that work. Some of those shapes become large, not because they seek to be, but because nothing ever asked them to stop. In a world without urgency, growth does not rush toward an edge. It slows, it listens, it adjusts, and sometimes it continues gently for a very long time. That is how size appears here, not as excess, not as imbalance, but as patience made visible. Cold water holds everything evenly. Darkness removes distraction. Distance removes conflict. Time stretches softly until life no longer feels pressure to hurry. In that softness, bodies become exactly what they need to be. Nothing more, nothing less. Large forms drifting through the deep are not symbols of power. They are symbols of belonging. They belong because they fit. From far above, their size feels unsettling. But from within the deep, it feels calm. There is no drama in their movement, no statement in their presence, only quiet continuation. They drift, they rest, they wait, and the water accepts them without question. The deep sea has always favored what endures, not what shines briefly, not what moves quickly, what endures. Bodies that endure learn to slow down. They learn to store rather than spend. They learn to remain rather than react. And when life learns these lessons long enough, growth becomes steady, unremarkable, inevitable. There is comfort in this idea that nothing needs to push itself beyond its limits, that growth does not require effort when conditions are kind. The deep is kind in its own way, not warm, not bright, but consistent. Consistency is enough. It allows life to relax into itself, and relaxation allows size to settle naturally, without strain. Nothing in the deep tries to impress. Nothing tries to dominate. Everything simply continues, supported by the same quiet rules. Year after year, century after century, large bodies are just one expression of that continuation. They are what happens when patience is given enough time to become shape. You do not need to remember details now. You do not need to hold onto explanations. Like the deep sea, this story does not demand attention. It allows drifting. Thoughts can slow. Images can blur. Nothing important will be missed. Imagine the water one last time, dark, still. A sense of depth without edges. Somewhere within it, large forms continue, moving slowly, not toward anything, not away from anything, simply existing. And that existence is enough. There is no ending here, only settling. The deep does not close its doors. It remains as it always has, quiet, patient, and your thoughts can follow the same rhythm now, slowing, softening. There is nothing left to do, Nothing left to understand, only rest, held gently, the way the deep holds everything it allows to grow.